Hi guys, welcome back to We Should Talk, a pop culture interview series from In the Know. I'm your host Gibson Johns, and if you are watching this and notice something different about my background, my surroundings, it's because I just moved. I moved apartments. I'm still in New York. I moved about 15 blocks away from where I was before. But I'm loving my new spot. I'm exhausted from the move. It takes a lot out of you to move in New York City. I took a day off work to do it, and there's still a lot of different moving pieces. And if you notice behind me, I have these amazing shelves, but they are currently a mess, half empty, half just stacks of random books. But I'm excited to fill those. I'm going to take my time doing so to make sure it looks pretty and nice and aesthetically pleasing. But I'm excited to be here, and my current setup is a little bit ad hoc for this, so excuse some of the mess. But we're here and we're loving it, and you'll see kind of some of that evolve behind me as you watch these subsequent episodes. But this week on the podcast, we have an amazing guest. We have Chrishell Stause from Selling Sunset, who, she's such a positive person. She's such a bright light. She's such a breath of fresh. And it was so fun to talk to her. You know, she started following me on Twitter a couple months ago, and I wasn't really sure how or why or whatever, but we tweeted each other sometimes, and and that's been really fun, honestly. And I just love her. I love the show. And so to be able to talk face to face, or at least over Zoom, was really special and really nice. And it was really fun. I mean, she's awesome, and she just had her house in Los Angeles redone. She had the help of TJ Maxx and Marshalls to overhaul the interior of her home, which was awesome. It looks amazing. If you're watching this, you'll see kind of that in the background. She has this amazing light, these amazing beams, and it's just a much brighter space than we saw on season 3 of Selling Sunset. It's where she moved after her split, and that's sort of where we left off with her on Selling Sunset. And we couldn't get too deep into what's going to be kind of coming up on Selling Sunset because they're obviously filming right now. She can't really say that much, but we did talk about sort of like, sitting on that secret of, the fact that they were renewed for not only 1, but 2 more seasons, so seasons 4 and 5. And she called it the worst kept secret, which is I kind of agree. I think we all knew it was coming back. It was such a hit. It was such an early pandemic hit for Netflix. And I know that a lot of my friends binged it and watched those first 3 seasons, and it's such like delicious, like drama heavy, but still kind of light and aesthetically pleasing and a feast for the eyes of a show. It doesn't get too deep into too much. I mean, we did get kind of deep into her split and stuff like that, but it's just like a great show, and I love seeing all the houses. I love most of the characters on the show. And I'm excited it's coming back. We talked about sort of who she's been keeping up with personally over the past several months. And there have been so many big moments that the Selling Sunset cast has gone through since season 3. And it's unclear exactly what's been filmed and what's not. But Christine is pregnant. Heather got engaged and is planning her entire wedding. Amanda's opened up about like her missing ex and how she hasn't seen him in a long time and she's trying to find him, which is really a really crazy story. If you haven't read about that, she opened up about recently. Definitely recommend reading about that. So there's a lot going on. I mean, Chrishell was on Dancing with the Stars and had a full relationship after that. So there's been a lot. And so we talked about sort of a little bit of what people can expect from Selling Sunset season 4 and 5, but also about more generally about Chrishell's experience with fame. And I mean, Selling Sunset has brought her a completely different level of fame than she had when she was just a soap actress. And now she's famous for being her. And so it was really interesting to hear her thoughts about that and sort of the differences of that experience. And she's gone through highs and lows as herself, and as people have as her follower count has skyrocketed, and what that's been like for her. I mean, I think in some ways she's an inspiration to a lot of people. She came from nothing and she pulled herself up by the bootstraps and has created a huge name for herself in the industry. So it was really awesome to hear about that. And she's just such a positive person. So it's a really fun interview. It's pretty light. We don't get too deep into Selling Sunset, so don't expect too much tea. But I think one thing that was really interesting that she said was, she was like, if I had known exactly what I was getting myself into, I wouldn't have done this show. But now that I am so deep into it, I'm giving it my all and really putting myself full self into it. And so I think that was really a great thing for her to say, and really interesting to know that like she maybe wouldn't have done this show in hindsight, but I think considering where it's taken her, I'm sure she's glad that she's done it. Before we get to that, I can do a couple quick TV and movie recommendations. I just watched the Tina Turner documentary on HBO. Amazing, can't recommend it enough. One of the best movies I've watched in a while. I was familiar with her story in a broad sense, but I did not know a lot of the intricacies of it. And I learned so much about this woman who is such an inspiration. The fact that she basically restarted her entire career at the age of like 50 And, she went through this split from her abusive, emotionally and physically abusive husband, Ike. And he basically wanted everything. He wanted to take everything from her. And I think in order to cut that tie, she basically said yes. But she was like, the one thing that I want is ownership of my name. I want the name Tina Turner. And Tina Turner is not her real name, which I didn't even realize. And she fought for it, and she got that name. That's all she walked away from her divorce with is her name. And because she knew that if she could just have that name, she could build this incredible career and brand for herself and really go for it as a solo artist. And what she did after that point is just mind-boggling and so incredible. And she had this goal of selling out football stadiums and being sort of the first woman of rock and roll, the first Black woman of rock and roll. And she did that. She did that and then some. And so it's a really awesome, amazing movie. And they tell her story incredibly well. There's so much awesome footage and imagery. So I'd highly recommend the Tina Turner documentary. Also, if you haven't watched Allen versus Farrow on HBO, harrowing, emotional, hard to watch in a lot of points, but really worth the watch and really well done. I also have been watching that QAnon story on HBO, which I think it's just a several part series, and that is like scarier than a horror movie. Like that is like really kind of scary stuff, but I think it's really well done. And again, it explains sort of like this current events thing that's happening, and something that I didn't really totally understand. So seeing that has been really mind opening. And then lastly, the last thing I'll recommend is Operation Varsity Blues on Netflix. It's the documentary about the college admissions scandal. And it's not as much centered on like the Lori Loughlin and Felicity Huffman of it all, which is a lot of what we heard like through the media while it was happening. But it's really centered on the man at the center of it, who is Rick Springer, and sort of the entire operation that he had going. And it's very well done. I think a lot of the Netflix stuff for me hasn't really been hitting recently. It hasn't really been doing the job, and it kind of feels like low budget and not that well made. But this one was really great. I had to get used to some of the reenactments that they did, but it's all based on real dialogue, and it's all real dialogue from recordings and things from the investigation. So if you think about it in that way, it's actually really cool and really well done, and really kind of eye opening, because you realize how extensive this operation that he had going was. So those are what I would recommend for right now. I haven't been as much up on my binging because of moving, but I promise I'll be back on my game going forward, because I have Wi-Fi now and I can catch up on all the shows that I haven't been watching. So anyway, keep listening for my interview with Chrishell Stause from Selling Sunset, and please rate, review, and subscribe to We Should Talk on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, so we're here with Chrishell Stause. Chrishell, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you so much.
I'm so excited to be talking to you, because we were just talking off camera, but we're Twitter friends and we've never talked in real life. I guess this is like technically real life, even though it's over Zoom. It's fun to be able to talk face to face.
100%. I think this is nice. I always see your profile pic. We're both profile pics to each other, so this is much better. It's nice to talk to you like this. Exactly.
So we do have to start with some really exciting news. I know I was very excited about it. I know you were very excited about it. I think it was last week that Netflix announced they renewed Selling Sunset for 2 more seasons. Yay! Congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
How did it feel to just have that news out in the world? Because I'm assuming you've known for at least a little bit that it was happening.
Yeah, it's kind of like the worst kept secret that there's ever been. So it was kind of nice because it was awkward. Like everyone knew, and yet we still can't say anything. So it's just kind of opened us up to, we're excited. We want to be able to talk about it. It's just sometimes, it's awkward when we can't. So it's just nice to kind of be like, okay, because you want to be able to share in that. There's certain things that I was working on and deals and things, and they don't want me to put it on Instagram or anything because it might be part of the show. And so then people are like, are you really a real estate agent? And I'm like, doing all these amazing deals that they, asked me not to, really share just right away. So anyway, it's nice to now be able to have it. It's very freeing. Like, yes, we're excited. This is what we're doing. And now I can kind of share the things that I've been working on.
Absolutely. And I feel like it works both ways, because on the one hand, it really does like build up this like probably even more anticipation because you guys aren't saying anything for a while. But at the same time, people are like, oh, we just want to know, so it works both ways. Yeah.
True. Very true.
So
Well,
Chrishell,
they definitely know what they're doing over there. So
oh, absolutely. I'm not going to question that by any means. Chrishell, I was just saying the room behind you looks amazing. First of all, the light is amazing. Just the beam, I'm seeing beams, I'm seeing some great furniture. You recently redid at least a couple rooms in your house. Talk to me about this because it looks like it's amazing.
thank you so much. I'm really excited to show you because I feel like it finally reflects my personality, and it's a space that I am really excited to spend time in because, we've been spending a lot of time at home.
Exactly.
And it gave me the time to really realize, you know what? I never made this space my own. I came into it, it was furnished and they were nice pieces, but they weren't necessarily pieces I would have chosen for myself. And so it's so funny now that I've done it. I'm like, oh my gosh, why didn't I do this sooner? It's just so, I just feel like now it's really inviting. It's really warm. It reflects my personality. And now I really love being in this space. So it doesn't feel, now we're spending so much more time at home. It's the perfect like spring refresh. So now I'm ready whenever I can entertain people. I can't wait to have people over, show it off. And every space kind of flows into the next. And so before it was one space was very different, wasn't cohesive to the next
Right.
space.
Mm-hmm.
And now I just love that it flows. It's completely, you're going to think that I've spent all this money on some top designer that came in and
It looks
and
like
did my
that.
home.
It really does.
it's really beautiful.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I feel like, and this is no shade because I am somebody who's going to frequent Marshalls and especially their candle section. There are some hidden gems in there. Maxinista, but I feel like when people hear about like a celebrity redoing their house, they're not going to think that they're going to go the more affordable route. You know what I mean? I think it's a pleasant surprise knowing that the brands that you chose to help you do this.
Yeah, I actually think, what's going to happen is you're going to later see this on season 4 of Selling Sunset. And so I actually like letting people in behind the curtain. I love a good deal and I hate wasting money. And so I feel like you get the quality, you get the value, and you legit, this looks like a high-end designer came in and redid my home. And it's all TJ Maxx, Marshalls. Everything is affordable. The quality is amazing. And so I just feel like it's kind of fun to let people in, and let them know, like, actually, you could do this too. And I am not a stylist, designer, anything. I feel like I'm kind of more like that paint by numbers. I have to kind of see it.
Totally.
And so it helped me a lot online. Seeing like the different photos that they would use, or even in the back of the store, how they have those setups, you go in for one thing, you leave with 50. So I feel like it's like, okay, if I can do this, I really do feel like anyone can. Cause even though people are like, they would think that I'm good at this. No, we pay stagers tons of money to do this for us. I just know when it works and when it doesn't. I'm not great at doing it on my own.
You know how to sell it. You know how to sell it, but somebody else has to come in. Right. And, as somebody who is moving soon, I'm moving an apartment soon. What is something that is sort of your highlight, your like sort of maybe an unexpected like thing that you're like, oh wait, I'm so glad that I have this now and I didn't before.
Yeah. So I actually just revamping, like at the kitchen, for instance, I put different chairs at the kitchen bar. And so before they were kind of stools that were a little more just for looks. They didn't have a back on it. They just kind of filled the space. And now I actually got these chairs. They have a back on it. So they're actually cozy, but they're really beautiful. It's got like gold detailing, kind of ties in the space. But now I sit there all the time. And so it's kind of funny that space I never used, I think maybe once. And now I think it might be my favorite space just because, literally there were $149.99, 2 chairs from TJ Maxx.
Incredible.
They're so gorgeous. You would never know that they're not super high end designer, stylist coming in, revamping the home. And it's changed the space completely.
I love that. And I think you said, you're obviously looking forward to entertaining people. We can't necessarily do that yet right now, but it's funny because like we've all been spending basically this whole year at home, and now you're getting it redone just in time for as things are sort of slowly and surely opening up. But you're right. It's sort of the idea that you can start to have people over and really kind of, just like wear in your space a little bit with like the love of your friends and family. So that sounds like it's something to look forward to at least, which is exciting.
Yeah. And that was one of the main things. I wanted the space to feel really inviting because, we're sitting at home. It's like, what, I can't wait till I can invite people in. And so I think it was, a sign of the times. I wanted a spring refresh. I wanted to be really warm and inviting. And I think that's what I accomplished. That's why I'm so proud of it.
So when you were spending time at home over the past year, how were you spending your solo time? Were you binging shows just like the rest of us? Were you like, what was really preoccupying you over the past year?
It's so funny. I think, we all go through stages, right? You have that stage where you're eating banana bread and you're binging,
yeah.
Selling Sunset. And then you have stages where, it's like, okay, I want to be productive. I got out a tape measure. I start measuring the room. I'm like, okay, I don't like this couch. It's not comfortable. Let me change it. Or this coffee table, it's a huge block of wood. It just really closes off the space. It made it really dark. And so I just started playing with the tape measure, and now that's what's so awesome. They deliver to your door. I go on tjmax.com, marshalls.com, and all of a sudden I've completely redone my whole
it's like poof, space. Right? Exactly. Yeah.
So it's, I've done it all. I've binged shows, I've read books, I've gone online, as you and I have become Twitter friends, and now I've redone my whole space. But now I think this is really exciting because it's like you said, we're all looking forward to being able to have a change in the times and be able to see, invite people over again. And I think that's another reason why it was like, okay, what can I do in this interim to get ready for that time?
Totally.
And be excited about it.
Totally. And like you said, it's like Selling Sunset was a show. I didn't watch the first season when it was on just because there are so many Netflix shows and it's hard to really keep track. And then, the second season premiered towards the beginning of the pandemic, and I fell in love with you guys, and I binged those first two seasons right back to back. And then you have the third season pretty much just a couple months later. And I think having those two so close together really made for this huge moment for you and the whole cast, where it was like everyone was talking about it. It really seemed like everyone was talking about you guys for several months. And I'm curious for you on the other end of that, as somebody who is like the subject of this show, and you're sort of the one that like sort of brings the audience into the beginning of the show. So I think we're attached to you in a way. What was it like just sort of like having that renewed attention that comes with a Netflix show that's in the top 10 of Netflix? You know what I mean? Like, how did you kind of deal with that? Just like meant like probably a ton of new followers, a ton of new attention, probably mostly in a good way. But I'm just curious, just as a person, what that was like.
It's interesting because it did happen in the middle of, this crazy time where everyone's locked in and kind of not having a lot of interaction. And all of a sudden this show becomes this sleeper hit.
Yeah.
And so it was a strange time for it to happen because it felt like something, but yet I'm still just at my house inside. And so, so it was like, I don't know that many people would be able to identify with this happening at the same time that we're all stuck inside. So some of it didn't feel any different. Like my life hasn't, I haven't really had a lot of interactions with people. It's not like you felt the difference when you walk outside your door as much as it would have been if we were out and about. That being said, I love that you said, I do feel like, people connect to the show, and I love when people say that they've connected to one of us in whatever way, because at the end of the day, it's kind of nice if you feel like you're just going about your life, and maybe something good or bad, it can actually like bring something to someone, whether it's escapism or whether it's identifying with something that helps them. So I think it's been a crazy journey that no one truly expected. Of course, no one could have thought that this is where the show is going,
absolutely.
But I'm really, I'm just kind of going with the flow at this point. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm just enjoying it. And, of course, there's going to be some like things that are, not necessarily the greatest, but there's so much amazing stuff that comes with it that you just kind of got to know that that's how it goes.
I feel like the positives just have to outweigh the negatives with something like this, because it's like, it is documenting your lives, but at the end of the day, it's really spotlighting on your careers. And I think that it's part of the reason why the show is so fun is obviously the cast, but also we get sort of this, like, if you want to call it real estate porn, which is like these amazing houses, you know what I mean? It's like, it is kind of like this, like, it's a feast for the eyes in a lot of ways. So I think it checks a lot of boxes.
Yeah, I think Adam DeVello, he's the creator, and he did such a good job of basically taking all those things that we are obsessed with for whatever reason, and he blended two different audiences together into one. And I think that was kind of the magic mix.
Totally. So who from the cast, because again, season 3 comes on, and then it's like, we have to wait however long for next season. And then I feel like a lot of stuff has happened. It's like Heather got engaged and Christine's pregnant and Amanda has talked about something that's going on in her life. A lot's happened, and as far as we know, at least, like a lot of it hasn't been documented. Who have you sort of been kind of keeping up with during this sort of like non-filming period for you guys?
I mean, I would probably say I still hang out and I'm really close with, well, first of all, I work with Jason all the time. We literally just closed a deal 2 days ago.
Congrats.
Mary, Amanda will always, we're either FaceTiming or we've actually been lucky enough to work on a few things where they've, been able to do all of the protocols so that we can see each other and hang out. And I love that things are kind of opening back up and we're able to do that again. And so Heather will sometimes drive in from OC and, got to go wedding dress shopping the other day, which was so fun.
So fun.
So I feel like it's like, and then, sometimes, I haven't been going into office that much just because of everything going on. The second I get, a vaccine or anything like that, I'll be the first one to be excited to, go back in there. But that's another reason why it was important for me to love my space, because I'm working from home right now, and I'm spending so much time here. And like I was saying, that space in the kitchen, like I work from there all the time now. So it's like a space that I never even used, and I end up gravitating there a lot. So, I think that
you have this haven that works.
Yeah, I'm excited to get back. With that being said, I'm not in a rush because now I actually enjoy being here too.
Totally. And I found for myself, I'm sort of like, I've sort of, again, I was a homebody before, but I've become like even more of a homebody since this whole pandemic has happened. And I'm finding it hard to get myself, as things are opening up and people are getting vaccinated, I'm finding it hard to like get myself to do things. Are you finding that for yourself? But it's like hard to almost motivate yourself to be social again or be on site for work?
Well, I feel like I know exactly what you're talking about, but I do feel like doing Dancing with the Stars was such a crazy experience that kind of pushed me past that, because all of a sudden I went from like, I feel like it like makes you feel like you're going to be socially awkward when you see people again.
Absolutely.
But that all of a sudden, it pushed you in past that because you have other things to worry about. You have to actually do a waltz on live television. So although I know exactly what you're talking about, I kind of got pushed like into the deep end out of that. So
I'm sure. What when you think about that Dancing with the Stars experience for you, I mean, obviously your experience on that show is very different from a lot of other people's experience on that show because of the year that it happened in. But like when you think back to that experience, what do you think of? And because it seems like a very challenging experience, regardless, physically and also mentally, regardless of what's happening, the pandemic notwithstanding. So what was that experience like for you overall? Because it seems fun, but also difficult.
Yeah, it was honestly the most challenging, rewarding experience I've ever had. I mean, the hardest thing I've ever done, and yet I wouldn't trade a single second of it, because I mean, honestly, to this day, if I watch some of those videos back, I can't believe I did that. I have no dance skills. I'm not flexible. I can't touch my toes. Like, I think people look at me and they would have thought that I had some sort of ability. And I was like, oh, sorry, I have none. So it was just such a beautiful experience, and being able to, dedicate certain dances, like the one I did for my parents, it would just always mean something to me. It was so special. And to take something that was so painful and turn it into art, I just really, really think it's one of those things, even though it scares you to death, sometimes the most rewarding things are the things that scare you. And knowing that, I knew I had to do the show, and I don't regret it for a second.
Well, and I think you should be, impressed with yourself too, because I think you did well on the show. And I think that like, it's clearly such a challenge, and for you to put yourself out there, and like, it is a very vulnerable thing, I feel like, as well. It's like, it's not, I think like the people who do the best on the show, like really put themselves out there, and you clearly did that. So,
thank you.
You clearly like kind of stuck up to that challenge. And I think one thing that it kind of gets back to for me about you is like, people voted for you also on this show. And I think that again, we just talked about people connecting with you through Selling Sunset. And I think, your experience on Dancing with the Stars combined with that proves to me that, people are really loving you for you. And I feel like, as somebody who started her career as an actress, that's probably a different feeling, because like, obviously you're experiencing fame on another level, but it's also because people, love you for Chrishell. And I'm curious if you could just speak to that a little bit, because it must feel pretty good and a little bit validating to feel that from a lot of people around the world.
I mean, it really does. It has its curveballs, because there are other times where it's you. So when something is misconstrued,
Right.
or, that has happened in the press where something is being construed a certain way, and the truth, and that's not the case. And so it has its ups and downs, but for that for every down to have actually overcome it and really have people feel like they know me, and have that be, because you don't know when those things happen, you thinking like maybe it's over, like because
Right.
of something that you couldn't help, or, and so anyway, I'm so grateful, because I love what I do. And of course, that little kid that didn't fit in was me. And so I have that part in me that wants people to like them. I know it's kind of an annoying trait to have, but, I put time and effort into how people perceive me and how I treat people. And I want to always have them leave with a positive experience. And so it does suck to have people hate you or to have a wrong impression of who you
Right.
are. But
yeah,
I do feel like knowing that, like, I've gone through all of this, and now people have only connected more, and they've really kind of followed my story. And I feel like I've found my voice, and people have kind of given me that confidence to kind of stand, behind my voice. And it feels like a team effort at this point. I'm so grateful. I'm happy to be there. I love when women reach out to me and they say that now they are approaching work scenarios, in a certain way because of something they saw, or, I'm hoping like this home renovation will be something where it's like they watch the show and they think that maybe they can't have anything like that. And I like being able to say, like, actually, this is TJ Maxx and Marshalls. Like,
Yeah.
you can do this too. So I
Mhm.
love connecting with people. I love feeling, that we can relate to each other. Because to be honest with you, it's funny. Sometimes I don't see myself that way. You're
Absolutely.
only yourself in your own legs. And so sometimes I'll forget where I'll do something and they're like, yeah. So it's just, it's been a journey.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. And I think last thing I'll say about that is I feel like that you have stayed connected to like where you came from and your own story in a way that you've owned it in a way that I think a lot of other people maybe who are in similar positions as you don't do. And I think that for me, like that's sort of what really, really kind of like opens you up again to people. And I'm sure that that's sort of what people send me messages about and things like that, because again, you're not shying away from things. You just are who you are. And I think that's awesome.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. It's also scary. It's scary sometimes to like go out on a limb and kind of have to live out loud, but then it's also freeing. In this process, it's not something I would have ever signed up for, knowing what I was getting myself into, if we're being honest. Now that I'm here, it's freeing, because now I don't have to pretend to have everything together and have everything perfect. It's not. I'm doing the best that I can. And I love connecting with people that, when you get knocked down, get back up, so it's nice.
Exactly.
It feels more real. I feel like that's kind of what 2020 has brought us all. But 2021 is a lot about just like, be who you are, live your truth, and kind of enough with the facade and stuff like that.
No, absolutely.
So
I think it really did tear some of those walls down. And it's sort of like, if you're not going to be real, then I don't think people are going to have time for that. So
it's less pressure too. Like,
exactly.
who has time to try and like act like everything's perfect? It's not. So it's easier just to be like, well, here it is.
Here it is. Take it or leave it, basically. Chrishell, so we have time for a couple more questions. We talked about sort of how many shows we were all binging over the pandemic. And I'm curious for you, what is one of the most recent shows that you have binged that you either loved or have been telling friends about, or you're in the middle of right now? What's something that has kind of stayed at the top of your mind?
Well, I feel like, didn't we all binge Bridgerton? I just feel
Everyone.
like what a breath of fresh air. What I loved the modern twist on it. I went back and watched it again. I just really I love the escapism.
Yes.
I love, I was that kid that loved those books that everyone hated when we had that reading where you had to read like Jane Eyre and like Wuthering Heights. I always loved those. So
I love that.
I just feel like this was like the perfect
Made for
blend
you.
of, just making it modern. So that's the first one that comes to mind. I'm currently watching, what's the one on, is it Amazon with Lily Rabe?
What's that
Tell Me Your
called?
Secrets.
Oh, yes. I haven't watched that yet.
I'm like halfway through that one right now.
Okay. Love it.
It's a little dark. It's definitely not like Bridgerton, so don't compare it. Totally
sometimes we need to do both the dark and the light.
Yeah. The Undoing was a good one. I feel like.
Very good. That was a moment. Yeah. And then lastly, you know, we talked about things that we're looking forward to, but I'm curious again for you. 2020 was a tough year, and I think a lot of people are sort of dwelling on, you know, the negatives of the last year and what it's kind of taken from us. But I'm trying to take the mentality of like, okay, what am I looking forward to this year as we kind of get out of this darkness? So for you, what's something in particular that you are really excited about that's gonna be for you this year?
Well, first of all, I completely agree with you. I'm the same way. I have to look at it that way. You have to try and look at the positive to get through, you know, those rough times. And that I'm really, truly looking forward to inviting people over to my house and entertaining my friends and hanging out with my friends. And that's one of the reasons I was so excited to, you know, revamp the space and really kind of have something to look forward to, because we haven't been able to do that. And it's like the simple things, the things that we took for granted before, having a friend over, you know, having a dinner party at your house. I cannot wait to do that. And now I'm going to be excited to show off my space. And I just like, honestly, just simple things. That's exactly, I think it taught me to not take those things for granted. Just the simplest things, going to dinner with a friend or having a friend over, something like that. It's like, can you imagine? I'm going to be the happiest person.
No, it's going to be amazing. It really is. So
I think that's a positive takeaway. Like I feel like we bonded with I always FaceTime my sisters now instead of calling them. So now it's
nice.
It's just nicer. And so it's funny, like, you know, before I felt like we had to look like we had our makeup on or we were ready to talk that way. Now, oh my gosh, we talk every time crazy. We just FaceTime no matter where we are in our, you know,
it doesn't matter.
Buns on our heads or anything. So I think there's a lot of positive. You just have to try and find it. Yeah.
Definitely. And lastly, you said you want to entertain people and have a dinner party. Who from Selling Sunset's getting that first invite?
Oh, that's a good question.
You maybe let's say it's a group. Let's say it's a 3 to 4 person dinner party that you're having.
I mean, it'd probably right now would probably have a tie between Mary and Amanda because, you know, we're just all best friends at this point. Yeah. And also, I really can't wait to see Amanda's take on my space because
the interior designer.
But on FaceTime, yes, exactly. She's an interior designer, so I really want that stamp of approval. So that's very important.
Absolutely.
But, yeah. So cool. I can't wait. They would be top of the list.
Love it. Well, Chrishell, so I'm going to talk to you. Where can people follow you and do your plugs that you need to do? Because people will definitely want to keep up with your life, especially as you are filming this season.
Yes. Well, you know, we'll keep you updated. Go to my Instagram is Chrishell.Stause, or I think I'm Chrishell7 on Twitter. And we'll, you know, the second that we're able to release any information I do, because I know people really want that release date. We don't have one yet. But stay tuned. And then I have a couple other things that'll be coming out soon. I'm working on, I'm super excited about, you know, how it goes. Unfortunately, I can't talk about it.
Tight-lipped, right? Exactly.
But I think, you know, this year I'm just really looking forward to all the different avenues and just everything opening up with opportunities and the world and just getting back to the things that really matter. You know,
well said.
Yeah. The simple things.
Yes.
That we took for granted before.
Absolutely. That's what 2021 is going to be about. It's already about that. So, Chrishell, it was so fun to talk face to face, and I'll tweet you again sometime.
Please do. It's so nice to talk to you.
You too. All right. Bye.
You're the best. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. For more celebrity interviews, subscribe to We Should Talk on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you like what you heard, please rate and review us, as any show of support you can give us would be greatly appreciated. You can follow me at Gibsonoma on Twitter and Instagram, and you can follow In The Know at In The Know on Twitter and at Watch In The Know on Instagram. We'll talk to you next time.